In our lives, there are many distractions that can catch us off guard or sidetrack our activities at work and at home. Electronic devices and screens are everywhere, cities get bigger and more crowded, noise increases, traffic increases, resources are shared between more and more people, animals make their homes closer to humans, and humans find new ways to survive and move from point A to point B. My name is Ray, and I'm a trainer at the People Incorporated Training Institute here in Eagan, Minnesota. I'm happy to be with you today to help slow things down as we work to adjust to new and increasing challenges in the world that we live and work in. As MnDOT workers, you provide a valuable service as millions of Minnesotans and thousands of visitors from around the world are using the 300,000 miles of Minnesota roads, highways, bridges, and rest areas that you, as MnDOT workers and community citizens, take pride in maintaining and using. You are on a team that's vital to our community infrastructure, and you make a path that helps us all move along to safe and satisfying lives. Most people have no idea how challenging your jobs can be, and many don't even realize the where and when you do this critical work behind the scenes. Thank you for all you do. What happens when your work is sidetracked by unexpected visitors and people who live in the place that happens to be in your line of duty on the Department of Transportation's right of way? In this training series, we're going to share important information and practical steps to plan your work when navigating encounters with people experiencing homelessness on your job site. Let's start by getting familiar with the who, where, and why people experiencing homelessness is a growing concern. On any given day, as you head out to your work site to complete your important and often dangerous tasks on the MnDOT right-of-way, it's wise to be prepared for the unexpected that you might find when you arrive on site. Situations where there's a person sleeping or living in a tent on the MnDOT right-of-way can be a stressor. But with some understanding and practical tips that we'll cover throughout this training series, we can make it easier on ourselves to get the job done and reduce the safety risks that might come up. As our population grows and life changes faster, there are people around us that struggle for basic food and shelter on a daily basis. Across the country and here in Minnesota, people experiencing homelessness is more and more common. More people are accessing formal program shelters like homeless shelters, emergency family shelters, domestic abuse shelters, and other transitional housing. Even more people are homeless and doubled up, living on a couch or non-bedroom in a crowded house or apartment. Even though Twin Cities homeless shelters doubled the number of beds they offer in the last 3 years, over 1,500 homeless are unsheltered in the Twin Cities metro nightly. Community advocates explain that getting a bed in a formal program shelter is no simple feat. A person has to sign up early in the morning to get a bed for tonight, but the list is often full before a person even wakes up to hustle to the shelter to sign up. Staying in a program shelter often means that a person can't bring all of their belongings with them or even count on staying there 2 nights in a row. Shelters are noisy, they lack privacy, sickness can spread quickly in a shelter, and requirements for sobriety may be an obstacle. Sometimes, though, people just don't feel safe in a formal program shelter with so many people around them that they don't know. Every year, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, known as HUD, performs a one-night, point-in-time count of people experiencing homelessness across the U.S. In January of 2019, the HUD point-in-time study was able to count almost 8,000 people in Minnesota who fit the definition of homeless. Studies across the country total around 567,000 people experiencing homelessness in the U.S., and this represents little improvement over 10 years previous when statistics showed 630,000 homeless in America in 2009. Locally, in St. Paul, the Amherst Wilder Foundation does the most extensive assessment and reporting of data from their homeless research in Minnesota. They publish their study every 3 years. In a one-night count of October of 2018, Wilder Research and many local agencies combined to count 10,233 people living homeless in Minnesota. Wilder also found that in the whole month of October, they totaled over 11,000 people experiencing homelessness. Wilder estimates that the count could be as high as 20,000 on any night of the year, and over 50,000 people experienced homelessness in Minnesota at any part of the year in 2018. Between their previous study and the latest in 2018, there is an overall increase of people experiencing homelessness of 10% and a 25% increase of people over age 55 experiencing homelessness. Another startling trend is the increasing number of people not staying in a formal shelter, meaning sleeping outdoors or in a tent has increased 62% from 2015 to 2018. This map shows the growing use of encampments around the city over the past few years. Something that's been steady is that an average of 1 out of 3 people experiencing homelessness have a job or maybe more than one job, but it's not enough to pay the rent and put food on the table. Over half of those interviewed by Wilder in 2018 were on a waiting list for subsidized housing, and the average time on this wait list is 12 months. So the shortage grows faster than programs can even keep up with. Wilder's research also explained the revolving door that people find when trying to overcome homelessness. Most homeless adults have had multiple experiences with homelessness, and many starting from an early age. More than half of those surveyed first became homeless by the time they were age 24, and over 1/3 first became homeless by 18. The number of people in families or unaccompanied children experiencing homelessness makes up about 50% of the 10,000 plus people experiencing homelessness in Minnesota. Another perspective can be gained by looking through the lens of racial and cultural diversity, as the impact that homelessness is having on people of color is out of proportion with the overall population. Census numbers show that people of color make up only 17% of the general population in Minnesota, but account for 2/3 of people experiencing homelessness. In a 2017 census study, only 6% of Minnesota's overall population is Black or African American, but Wilder Foundation report showed that people who are Black or African American make up almost 40% of people experiencing homelessness in Minnesota. The 2018 Wilder report was the first time that homelessness was measured in the American Indian reservations in Minnesota, and found that American Indians are affected at a high ratio, since they represent only 1% of the general population, but 12% of adults experiencing homelessness across Minnesota. People who identified as Hispanic had double the rate of homelessness at 8%, in contrast to representing only 4% of Minnesota's census population. The homeless report in 2018 shows that about 11% of the adults experiencing homelessness identify being in the LGBTQ community. That's been steady since the 2015 report, but youth experiencing homelessness and identifying as LGBTQ is on the rise, however. On a positive trend, military veterans who end up homeless are starting to get more help, and that trend is reducing veteran homelessness. Now, let's connect to the why behind the numbers. Sudden job changes or medical events can quickly cause a personal financial crisis. World events can cause economic crashes that leave people unable to keep their homes when things had been just fine for them. The number one reason people report as the cause leading to a homeless living situation is the lack of affordable housing, as real estate markets are flooded by high-end homes and apartments. The lack of a job or money is an easy label to put on the situations behind homelessness. This is more than a money issue. Physical disabilities and mental health disorders can affect people's energy, mobility, memory, and ability to navigate complex situations throughout a person's lifetime. Relationships and families can fall apart, which leaves individuals and children isolated and without loved ones to depend on. People in abusive environments might need to leave suddenly, so they don't have the ability to plan their next step safely. It's a constant state of climbing through stress and unmet needs when housing isn't stable. This pyramid, known as the hierarchy of needs, introduced by Dr. Abraham Maslow in 1943, shows that the growth of life satisfaction increases as basic needs toward the bottom of the pyramid are met, and one can look to fulfill needs higher on the pyramid. The basic daily needs of food, shelter, water, sleep, and safety need to be met before someone can focus on healthy relationships that meet their love and belonging needs. Then, being able to meet the needs of belonging allows one to move up towards fulfilling the needs of self-esteem, like achieving goals, improving abilities, and gaining respect. Being able to keep all of these base needs managed and moving forward on a daily basis is what allows us to reach self-actualization or living our best life. If we are unable to meet the physical needs at the bottom of the pyramid day after day, we can't begin to focus on the levels of the pyramid above that provide for love, belongingness, achievement, esteem, and finally self-actualization. The constant state of stress experienced when you struggle daily to take care of the needs at the bottom of the pyramid takes a toll on the mind and body, leaves us in a survival mode. Add that trauma to someone who's trying to recover from traumatic situations in their past, and it feels like it would take a miracle for them to get where they need to in life. Trauma from our childhood experience has been identified as a measurable indicator of our wellness later in life. Adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, have been scientifically studied, and when any of these traumatic situations happen to a person before age 18, it can leave a person with negative effects that last a lifetime. There are 10 questions on the ACEs self-assessment that identify dysfunction in family upbringing and surroundings. The basic findings of the study is that the more adversity a person has when they are young multiplies the risk for health and social problems. We will revisit this study in a later training, and you can learn more in-depth info on the U.S. Center for Disease Control website, cdc.gov, and search for ACEs. The CDC shares this quote, which shows how adversity in childhood can have lasting negative effects on health and opportunity. Toxic stress from these traumas can change brain development, increase risk of disease and death, and strain relationships throughout a person's lifetime. These effects can also be passed on generationally. In Wilder's 2018 report on Minnesota, 3 out of 4 people experiencing homelessness reported they lived at least one of these adverse childhood experiences listed in the ACEs assessment. Half of those surveyed in the Minnesota study reported experiencing 3 or more ACEs in their life. These numbers are double of what's reported in the general population. This may affect how people experiencing homelessness perceive you and interact with you as you go about your daily work in a safe manner. The most reported adversities involved having parents with mental illness, family substance use issues, and witnessing physical abuse in the family. Other findings in the ACEs study shows that people with 3 or more factors have a risk that is 10 times higher than normal for diabetes, liver disease, alcoholism, COPD, and other life-threatening diseases. Again, you can learn more about ACEs at cdc.gov, and I encourage you to read about it for your own personal benefit as well. Today, we introduced the homeless population and identified the who, where, and why we encounter people experiencing homelessness more and more in our daily lives. People experiencing homelessness are not always who you might think or where you might expect. All ages, races, and cultural backgrounds are affected, and relief services can be slow to respond to the increasing need, so people end up living outside in the often harsh Minnesota weather. People become homeless due to so many factors, most of which include past trauma and other things out of their control like physical and mental illness, economic situations, and barriers applying for or receiving assistance from programs. Life changes faster every day, and we need the skills to adjust along with these changes. With new skills to help us be resilient, our work improves, our family time and recreation improves, and our overall life satisfaction grows. You aren't here to become a social worker or solve the problems of homelessness in the world, but the more you know about people experiencing homelessness, the better you'll be able to do the job in front of you, even if there is a person in front of you who's experiencing homelessness or some other situation of unmet needs. Next time, we'll take a look at the situations that can make life dangerous for people experiencing homelessness and sometimes affect their perception of you, which can affect your daily work in the community. Before we're done today, let's begin to open a safe and constructive discussion with our teammates and the supervisors sharing this presentation. Thank you for being with us today.